Hi guys, hey, I thought I would do another Bachelorette video. This is my third one for the season. I'm assuming if you're watching this, you know what happened. So Rachel chose Brian. Now you guys know I've had my opinions about Brian all season. So this is my Bachelorette final rose reaction, the whole last episode pretty much, not just that she chose Brian. I did a video in the beginning after I watched the first night where we got introduced to all the guys, and then I did a video after Dean left, I think right before all three, I think I did the video. So I wrote some stuff down last night while I was watching, and if you guys ever want to know what I'm thinking in the moment, just make sure you're following me on Twitter because I'm always tweeting live during the episodes. I share some strong opinions. But I'm gonna go kind of from the beginning of the episode to the end of the episode, kind of how it went chronologically. At the beginning of the episode, she sends home Eric, and I feel bad about it because I did really like Eric. He was a great guy. He was really sweet. I know in the beginning he had his outbursts, but I think he was just kind of getting used to the process. I really liked Eric. I didn't think he was necessarily, I said this in my other video, I didn't think he was right for Rachel. As mature as I think he is and sweet and kind, when she sent him home, he was just such a gentleman and so classy about it. And then even on after the final rose, damn did he look good, by the way. But he was just so grateful and just so sweet about it. And I really appreciated that. I think that's really great when we see people like that who don't freak out. He was just really nice about it. He was like, I'll miss you and I think you're gonna find what you want. I just thought that was great. And then also I wanted to mention, I did know about the spoilers before this episode. I didn't purposely find out. I try not to read the spoilers and find out that stuff because I feel a lot of the time it's not right. But this season in the beginning, apparently there was a spoiler that Peter won. I didn't know about that. I said Peter was going to win just because I liked him the best from the first episode, but recently there was a spoiler, which I found out after I filmed my last video for the final three, that Peter wasn't going to win and that it was going to be Brian. And now the spoiler was that Astrid from next season, I think, who's friends with Rachel, obviously knew who won. This isn't that important, but I have to share this. So in the interview, it was a half-an-hour interview. First of all, who is Astrid? Astrid, no one even knows who you are. Why are you doing an interview? It's a half-an-hour interview. The woman who interviews her obviously is experienced, and Astrid's probably pretty new to the spotlight. And so she interviews her for a half hour, and then at the 28-minute mark, literally when there's 2 minutes left, this woman asks her, so how about Rachel? How's she doing? And this is what Astrid said. She said, oh, well, after the final rose, they're gonna go to Dallas, her hometown, for an engagement party, and then they're gonna go to Miami. So obviously we all knew it was stupid Brian. You could see her face in the interview drop. When I saw that and I heard about that, I was like, I'm still holding out hope for Peter. I really am. Their connection is just so much stronger. And I was hoping maybe this Ashton thing was a hoax from ABC staged it or something so that we would be thrown off. Obviously that's not true, but I was holding out hope. Even going into the final episode, knowing about that and knowing that there was a good chance Brian was gonna make it, I was really hoping that it was still gonna be Peter. But so obviously Peter didn't make it. And so the new thing that they did this season was the interview throughout the show. We had Rachel there the whole time talking about it. I didn't like that at first when they brought her out. I was like, oh, okay, this is gonna be interesting. I quickly rescinded that. I posted about it on Twitter. I didn't like how they did that. I thought it was really annoying, actually. First of all, one thing I've noticed that whole season is that they're making it less about the story. We don't even see these couples anymore. Tell me if I'm the only one who notices this, but that it's not about the couples, it's not about the story, their dates. We see more interviews with them in the camera than we do see them with each other, and I feel like the whole plot is more about, the whole thing that we're waiting for is the shock. The shock factor is what they're more wanting than anything else, but yet for the last episode, I think that the interview with her in studio made it a lot less powerful. Seeing her reaction to, sending home Eric and sending home Peter, it made it not as shocking. When we saw the fight with her and Peter and when they said goodbye, I still thought there was going to be something else. I think that watching her react to it live made it so obvious that I guess that he wasn't gonna stay. I don't know, it just, I didn't like the whole live reaction thing. I hope they don't do that again next season. It must have been hard for her too not to spill the beans early. You could see when she would hesitate before saying a certain word so it didn't sound like she's not with this person. It was really annoying. Then I want to talk about the fight with Peter. It was a lot to handle. I thought it was the most probably real fight I've ever seen on the show in all the seasons I've been watching. It felt so authentic and real, and that could have been a fight that happened off the show. They both obviously had a lot of strong feelings. I don't know that I've ever seen feelings that strong on the show before. You could tell how upset they both were, and the whole kissing and the goodbye, and she's like, I don't want to say goodbye. That didn't feel done to me at all, and the fact that he tried to reach out after that and she turned him down pissed me off. I don't care if you're engaged to Brian, you could have at least talked to him. The way they ended things was so wrong and not okay. I know real life breakups happen like that, but you still have the option to reach out to someone to get some closure, and I feel like he didn't get that. And obviously she got engaged the next day, so she didn't really even need closure. She was engaged, but he did. He obviously was still hurt by it during the interview and things, and it didn't seem fair to me that she couldn't even reach out to him. give him some kind of closure. I still feel bad for him. Like, I feel like it really affected him. He obviously had really strong feelings for her. The position that she put him in, I thought was so wrong, because I know a lot of people would say, you know, Peter shouldn't have come on the show if he wasn't ready for marriage, but I don't think that's what the problem was. You don't know that you're gonna be ready for marriage with that person. Every relationship is different. So you might think, okay, I could meet someone after a couple of weeks, want to marry them, but you don't know. And I think what was struggling with Peter, I think that if Peter and Rachel met off the show, they would have been fine. But I think that Peter couldn't propose knowing that Brian was still there. And I think that was like a big factor of it, because she wanted 100% to know that he was going to propose. And I think that because she was wanting that so bad and so upset, if he was willing to propose, she would have said yes to Peter, and she would have picked Peter. But because he was struggling with that, which I think is completely fair, to be honest. Okay, you barely know this person, you've only dated on a TV show, and she also still has another guy around. He didn't want to propose without knowing she would say yes and pick him, and she didn't want to pick him knowing that he might not propose. And I think that they both weren't willing to budge. And the thing was, Peter did kind of say, I am willing to budge, but I'm letting you know that I'm doing this to keep you so I don't lose you, but I'm still not ready. And like, he was just being honest. Like, I really appreciate his honesty. I know a lot of people on the show, like, why do you think there's been so many breakups after the fact that people got engaged on the show? Because they weren't ready. And they rushed into it, and there was a lot of obviously different things in every relationship, but he wasn't willing to do that when he wasn't ready. And I know that's like the premise of the show, but so what? But by the time it gets to the end, I don't think the premise of the show really matters anymore, because eventually the show's over and you're living in reality, and that's what's important. Apparently it's Big Loud Truck Day over here. But I think he was just being realistic, and I get it's less romantic and things like that, but I think that what Peter was doing was honest, and I wish more people on the show would actually talk like the way that he did. And just because you're on the show doesn't mean you have to be engaged at the end. And like, I appreciated that fact. I also think another thing I wanted to point out was Peter multiple times throughout the season has said he doesn't trust Brian, that he's not the biggest fan of Brian. Holla back, y'all, I agree. Was that the wrong thing to say? Probably. But I also didn't trust Brian, but the thing is, Peter never went to Rachel and said, I don't trust Brian, you shouldn't pick him. He never said that, and I think that really proves what kind of a person he is, and that he was more about his relationship with Rachel, and he wasn't focusing on the other men. And I think that's amazing, because even though he didn't trust him, he still let her be. He wanted her to make the right decision for her, and I think that's really, really great. I do think that that might have been another thing that made him not want to propose, because he probably thought, I don't trust Brian, how can she trust Brian? See, I was kind of mad at Rachel, to be honest. Like, she was really not putting him in a fair position. Like, I get that's how the show works, you just have to take that risk, but I understand where he was coming from, and I really appreciate it. I think that most of the country does, because everyone's freaking in love with Peter. That whole fight was just like so heartbreaking. Like, that was the only part I really cried at. The interview part where he came and talked to Rachel, I thought was awful. I could not believe how rude she was to him. She had such attitude. She did attack him. He said he felt attacked and couldn't describe it, but she did. She had so much attitude toward him when he never did anything wrong. And he even, you know, didn't remember the rude things he might have said while they were fighting, but he said, I don't remember them, but I'm so sorry. Like, he genuinely apologized and like felt bad about it. But I think we've all said things we regret in fights, and so he apologized, she accepted, but she was still so rude to him. That didn't seem fair. He didn't get the closure he needed, and she said that that interview felt like closure to her. How? It didn't seem like closure at all. She was so polite when she saw Dean, she was so polite when she saw Eric. Even when she saw Eric, I feel like she was like still a little hung up on him. With Peter, she made it sound like they never had feelings. Like, he obviously was in love with her and like would have wanted to be with her, and she broke his heart, and she was so cruel. I could not believe it. She was rubbing it in his face how happy she was, and I just thought she was being unbelievably rude. Every time he would say something about how he feels, she'd be like, no, it's not like that. Like, you can't tell him how he feels. Like, you can say how you felt. I just found it very like distasteful. I lost a little bit of respect for Rachel. I expected a lot more from her. I thought that, you know, after the way they ended things, she would have had more to say, I guess. And like, I know she's engaged and she can't be like sharing her real feelings like that on live TV in front of the guy she's engaged to, but I thought she could have been a lot more polite to him, a lot more cordial, nice. Like, he was trying so hard to be nice, but you could tell how much he was struggling. Like, he was so hurt, and I think that it sucks that she couldn't see that. I think that he's too good for her, to be honest. It kind of sucks that all season he was tuned into her, and he you know, stayed despite his fears for her, and she was still so rude. And I find it really hard. I don't know, like, I don't know if she still has feelings for him or what it was, but she obviously was being rude. And then when she said, I'm living my best life, I thought that was so wrong. I thought that, you know, you're rubbing it in his face. He's obviously still hurt. He apologized for what he said, which honestly, I don't think he even should have. Like, when he said, you know, you're gonna live a mediocre life with Brian, pretty much, I was like, yeah, she is. It's gonna be fake, and I agree. But, I mean, I don't know, like, I just felt like no matter what Peter might have said in that fight, he didn't deserve how rude she was. And then for her to tell him that he isn't right for this process, I thought that was so messed up. And she said it twice, kind of like urging him not to become the Bachelor, when obviously that's what all of America wants. And I think that was wrong too, that she even said that, trying to get him not to date other people or find true love. Like, that's not fair. At the end of next season, you wouldn't have expected Rachel to be the Bachelorette either. Like, she was very hesitant with the process, and like was the last person to share how she felt and stuff. So that's kind of where he was. Oh, and then what really drove me nuts was after her interview with Peter, when we saw her getting engaged to Brian, like that morning, she was saying stuff like, I don't know if I'm rushing it with Brian now, like just breaking up with Peter last night. Like, are you kidding? If I had that breakup with Peter that night before, that kind of intense breakup, I'd be crying for a week in bed, like looking horrible. And that she's gonna go get dressed and get engaged the next day. But she was like, oh, I don't know, now am I rushing it? Like, now she thinks she's rushing it with Brian, but she couldn't understand that Peter thought it was rushing it. Like, what? And with Brian, honestly, I told you guys from the beginning, I don't like Brian. I don't trust him. I think he's sleazy. The things he says are just awful. Like, winning the show. Win Rachel. Later in the interview, when he was talking about Peter being sent home, he said when Peter was eliminated. It just sounds like he's thinking about it as a game, as a show, and not as actually trying to find, like, I don't know, I didn't like it. I thought his proposal was boring. I thought it was fake. I thought it was really rehearsed. Neither one of them cried. I don't know, like, I felt, I didn't like it. I was cringing the whole time. I mean, I cringe most of the time when Brian talks, but I don't know, I just didn't really enjoy having him on the screen. That's one thing. I'm glad that, like, he's not gonna be the Bachelor. I don't think that would have happened because too many people didn't like him. But I'm glad I don't have to see him anymore. The only time I ever thought that they had a connection was the first night and then the morning after their overnight date. But other than that, just talking about Brian is making me choke. Oh, that's one thing I want to mention too. I mentioned this before, but that whenever they choose a Bachelor or Bachelorette for the season, I'm really excited. Like, I usually really like the person, not always, but most of the time I'm like, oh, okay, good choice. And I'm excited to watch them, and then by like halfway through the season, I end up not liking them so much, and that happened with Rachel. Like, I'm sorry to say it did. I was so excited about Rachel. Like, you could have seen my first video for the season. I was really excited about her, and by the end, I was kind of disappointed. The way she treated Peter in that interview, the fact that she picked someone like Brian, I'm just kind of shocked. Like, he just seems so untrustworthy. They never even had a fight. That's what's so weird, is like they lived a fairy tale. You know, her and Peter had fights. Even her and Eric had fights, and yet her and Brian, I don't think they ever really fought or had any kind of issue, and it just felt like too smooth sailing. And like, she was saying that in the proposal, you know, oh, it's so too easy, I like the drama. And like, I don't even think it's about drama. It's just like a real relationship versus a TV relationship. With all my opinions I'm putting out there, with the jokes that I've made about Brian and the whole show and like everything I tweet about, with all that being said, as much as I'm not happy with this outcome, and I do wish that it was Peter, although I think he deserves better, as much as I wish it wasn't Brian, I guess we could put it out there, because I would be happy if it was Eric too. I am just making these opinions based on what I'm seeing. I don't know these people, and I know that. I'm making these opinions based on ABC's editing, on what ABC decided to show us. You know, maybe in real life, Brian is a great guy. Maybe he only comes off really fake on TV. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Brian's great. Maybe whatever. But from what I'm seeing, that's where I'm getting my opinions from. I don't know Brian. I don't know Rachel. You can think you know the Bachelor or the Bachelorette. You can think you know what they're going to do based on what we know of them. But you don't know that much. It's like a YouTuber or anyone else. You don't know them just because you see like some of their life, which seems like a lot. It's really not. Maybe Rachel and Brian will work out, and that would be great. Like, I wish the best for them. I really do. As a fan of the show, I was disappointed watching all these weeks and building it up for it not to be Peter. But I don't care. Like, you know what I mean? It's not my life, it's their life. And I think that there's a difference between commenting and making comments and jokes and talking about it the way I am, in a way that all I'm saying is this is my opinion of the show, of this season, of what I've seen edited. I don't really know them, and it doesn't really matter what I think. And there's a difference between sharing your opinions of Brian, of Rachel, whatever, versus hating on them. And I think she will be getting a lot of hate for not picking Peter, and especially for how rude she was. Like, I don't want to say she deserves hate, but I do think a lot of people lost some respect for her. For someone who we actually all really expected. I think a lot of people looked up to Rachel, and as well as I did, I thought she was great. I thought she was a perfect choice, but seeing the way she treated Peter in that interview really turned me off of her. These are the things I'm pulling from what I'm seeing on the show. This obviously isn't based in reality. I did want to just throw that out there. Please, like, if you agree with me, great. Like, I'd love to hear that you also love Peter. I don't think that anyone should be, like, calling out to Rachel and actually hating on her, because it's her choice, it's her life, and like it really doesn't matter what the public thinks. Like, yes, she decided to become the Bachelor and put her personal life out there in public, but that doesn't mean that she deserves to get hate or like cruelty or stuff like that. I do wish the best for them. Like, I do hope it works out for them and that they're both happy, because they deserve it. Like, I don't think that just because I don't trust him or I find him sleazy doesn't mean he's a bad person. So that's kind of my reaction to the season. I will give you my top 3 choices for the Bachelor, which would be Peter, Eric, or Wells. I don't know that's gonna be Eric. I think that would just be the obvious choice. As much as I'm not hating on Eric at all, I really like him, but I feel like I'd rather see him on Paradise. I mean, I wouldn't be unhappy if they chose him. I just think it'd be kind of predictable. Peter, again, I do think it would be kind of predictable, but because he's so honest and so straightforward and just says what he's feeling, I think that season with him would be really interesting. I'd love to see if he'd send a lot of people home before ceremonies. Another option for The Bachelor that I think is underrated is Wells from JoJo's season. He was on Paradise and a lot of people really liked him. Like, he is someone I think girls gravitate toward because he's funny and just normal and just like entertaining. I think that if they made him the Bachelor, he would be such a rare choice. I think that he would make a really interesting Bachelor. Like, he wouldn't be boring at all. Those are my 3 choices. Let me know who you pick for the Bachelor. I'm very, very, very excited about Paradise. I'm a little hesitant about the whole scandal thing and how they're gonna go about that, but I am really excited. I would do videos on Bachelor in Paradise, but it's so hard since new people come on every week that you can't really make an assessment. But be sure to follow me on Twitter. My thing's right here if you want to hear my live updates with it and stuff. So thank you so much for watching this video and my other videos about this season. If you want this every season, let me know. Give it a thumbs up if you did enjoy this. Please subscribe to see more from me, and I will see you next time. Bye!